sir.
So, good morning, everyone.
Morning, sir.
Morning,
Morning,
sir.
sir.
Hello, hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Morning, sir.
Okay, let's start the class with a prayer. Okay, Philip. Can you lead the prayer, Philip? Hello. Madugang ko ninyo, class?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Hello, hello. Polite. Madugang ko ninyo, dili.
Dungog,
Dunggan,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Dunggan, sir.
Tuban,
Dunggan,
kay
sir.
mag-out ko din eh.
Sir, nalip.
Ano wala ka tubag sa polite? Madok, mag-ampo. Okay, Philip, can you lead the prayer, Philip? I posted already the prayer. Oh. Presented already. Would you mind? Wala, wala mabasa sa polite sa prayer. Sa mo din polite, mga silahis, mong tanan din eh.
No-pray naman, sir.
Sir, nag-pray naman si Philip, sir. Ganina ra siya nag-pray.
Wala, Jude. My God, ninyo. Kung di mo mabag-op ito polite, ay na lang magkuhan din ang maklase. Bisag prayer,
Sir,
di mo pa kuhan, di mo pa basa
Sir,
dana, walay ka
na
volunteer nga
nag-pray, sir.
mag-lead sa prayer.
Philip, sir.
What kind of students are you di ay?
Oh my God.
Wala, I can't hear anything, Jude. What's happening? Tingnan ko, madunggan akong bata lagi. Ito mo madunggan.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Hello, madunggan. Madunggan ko ninyo.
Yes, sir. Madunggan ka namin, sir.
Wait lang ah. Pagsabayan daw mo din.
No, 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 no. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Good afternoon. Ay, good morning.
Sir,
Good morning,
sir.
sir.
Good morning,
Hello,
sir.
There's
sir.
something wrong
Good morning, sir.
sa audio na ako. Wait lang. Okay. Okay, para na. Okay, you listen na lang. So, good morning everyone again. So, we will be discussing 3 I's. Okay? Okay, thank you sa prayer, Philip. I'm sorry sa okay. So, what is 3 I's? So, 3 I's is about inquiries, investigations, and immersion. So, since you don't have any immersion at all, so you'll be focusing on this on making a capstone research. So, this topic is also quite it's also a helpful one, okay, especially when you're actually you've done your practical research 1 and 2. So this one is sort of one na siguro, uh, let's say a descriptive study on what is and research all about. Okay, what is the connection of the scientific investigation or the methods, or how can you apply this certain inquiries and investigation to a certain immersion as well. Since you are a STEM student, so basically, no, you'll be exposed to any scientific na situation or background. So today we'll be discussing about the introduction about the research. So pananta sort of balik lang sa tagamay about sa inyong research before. Okay? Since I can't hear you, class, so dita mo madunggan kung na mo i-answer sa ako dili or wala. You just have to listen na lang siguro. So research and introduction. So we'll be dealing about the important concepts on what is a research is all about. Now the objectives of doing the research is first you have to formulate a better research question. Okay, feel more comfortable with the clinical research process, understand the ideas of constructs and oper, uh, operationalization, understand the major differences between the quantitative and qualitative approaches to doing educational research. Actually, sa inyong practical research too, if I'm not mistaken, no, you are, kwan, you're supposed to choose either a quantitative or qualitative type of research. Okay, so according to your research instructor, most of you chose to have it into qualitative rather than the quantitative because qualitative is more on the literal and practical. While dito manggod sa quantitative is all about calculation and more of kind of evaluation. So if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research, would it? Okay, that's a very philosophical question. No? If you know what you're doing, then why do research? Okay, research is only research can only be done if you are so confused and you're very, ano, you tend to ask questions regarding to what is totally happening in your surrounding and when you are quite curious okay about something, it's all about curiosity, especially in scientific investigation or scientific method. It's all about curiosity, diba? Research or experimental research wouldn't be done unless there's curiosity. So how do you develop your question? So first you start with a clear purpose. Okay, what's the purpose of your research, diba? Why do the research? Okay, what to research? And then you have to know your literature. If there's any background about your study, then go on with that kind of background study. Okay, something that will support your question. Okay, sometimes my good, we're creating research question that is let's say out of context pa. Okay, no validation coming from other resources. So wala pa yung mga recent studies na buhat na. Instead, you have to make your own research, okay? Creating your own research, and of course, you have to state the purpose of doing that. So those literature that will be related to your new research questions will be something na pwede magamit sa kanang other studies. Okay? Sometimes ako gagamit ang mga resources nga something connected lang. Pero dito pa mao, no? Connected lang siya. Mo support lang gamay. Next, okay? Be iterative in your approach. Okay? So you have to be clear, you have to everything that should be done in research should be clear. Dapat na-adjud kay na ay point ang imuhang buhaton nga research. Okay? And that you have to be knowledgeable about what you're trying to do when it comes to research. Okay? Hindi pwedeng magbuhat kang question diya and then wala na yun. Okay? Wala lang. This is the problem of the students, especially sa mga bots of research do. Na-create lang ta og title. Once the title nga ma-create, pag indo na sa instructor din niya, can you do some supporting details about your research title? Wala na. Nga na yun. Okay? So, you have to be mindful about what is an action research, what is educational research, what is experimental research, because we have different type of researches. Though naatay assessments or evaluations nga natay option. Next is try to specify the who, the what, where, and when of your purpose. It's the most important part of doing your research question. And then ask yourself, what would the answer to this question? Okay, and will it be correlated to the literatures that you have researched? Okay, that's the methodology that you have been using for the whole process really matters in imong research question. So those are the things that you need to consider. Okay, let's start with the research process, class. Okay, the research process is where the identification of the general problem or the question happened to be exposed. We also have here the literature review. We have the specific questions and hypothesis, determination of design and methodology, the data collection, data analysis and presentation, and of course, interpretation of findings. Okay, so those are the research process. So we're done doing the question. So next is try to look for the background of your study or try to look for resources and references that will support your study. And then you'll have the specific question, okay? The statement of the problem, okay? The statement of the problem should be related as well to sa titles and research because the statement of the problem will now support the problem itself. Okay, and then the answer of the problem that you made is not a to na belongs to statement of the problem because walang guide mo. And the determination of design. Okay, you have to choose which design do you think is probably okay. Okay, is it are you okay with the quantitative or are you okay with the qualitative? And data collection. Okay, you have to do some data collection because no research will be verified and validated kung walay data collection. And then we also have here data analysis and presentation. Okay, you have to, as a researcher, it's your job to present your research. How did you do it? Okay, what are the processes na imong what are those processes na imong undergone to come up with that data? And then interpretation of findings. Okay, you can now have your conclusion. Okay, does it answer your statement of the problem? Are you satisfied with your data collection? Are you okay with it? Okay, is it really does the process really implied all of those data na na-collect nimo na kung ba din siya nag-match ba din siya dito sa problem. Now, the right and the left. Okay, you have we have two types of research. We have the quantitative and the qualitative. Again, the quantitative talks about the numbers. Okay, it's all about the statistics and statistics, probability. Okay, you have that mathematical mathematical processes, scientific processes. Those are belong to quantitative research. The qualitative research, on the other hand, is all about the words. Okay, most of the time we tend to do it through descriptive type of research. We do have different kind of research class. Okay, so we will be dealing that one later. So quantitative versus the qualitative, the assumptions about the world. Remember, again, ganina, tainan ko sa inyo, I open up the situation kung asa gipapili mo sa inyong practical research teacher. Which one do you think is more sa inyo is understandable o mas easier to learn? So most of you chose the qualitative rather than the quantitative. Okay? Now, remember once na mas STEM student di mo na mawala sa college student, as a college student, especially kung fourth year we are usually required to do some research. Okay? Thesis pa ka. So, wala tayong option. Okay? Wala tayong other option but to choose which of these two, quantitative or qualitative. And we have to make sure na kung sa ato ang mapili nga research design is masupport nato na siya. Okay? Ato siyang mapaglaban daw. May paglaban nato na siya but all throughout the process, ato mahuman din siya. Okay? We have to defend it. So what is the quantitative and qualitative and what are their differences? So quantitative is based on the idea of the logical positivism. there is a singular reality with a stable social facts that are separate from the feelings and beliefs of individuals. If you talk about numbers ng good class, it means nakagibuhat nga, let's say, mga surveys, okay? Ang surveys na descriptive, na-apoy ka ng numerical, okay? Namin ingana nga different type of rich designs, okay? Mga instruments. If uh, if your data is based from the numbers, then there's a possibility na kana siya nga findings nimo will be either stable siya or socially factual. Okay? Kasabot na somewhat true because you have numbers to prove that one. While in qualitative, it is based on the notion of the constructivism, which assumes that multiple realities that are socially constructed through individual and collective perceptions are views of the same situations. So these are surveys that do not require numbers, but it requires the perception of the respondents. Okay, kana bitaw mga yes no, kana bitaw mga kana bitaw agree disagree. Okay, di ba na mga ingana ang mga options nila, naapoy mga excellent, very good, good, di ba, fair, not good, fail, something nga na. So those are part of the constructivism. Okay? Mura bitag, based lang ka sa kwan, wala ka nag-base sa numbers, pero nag-base ka sa statement sa mga respondents. Okay? So that is how we differentiate quantitative to qualitative. So how about in research purposes? Now, in quantitative, it seeks to establish the relationships and explain causes of changes in measured variables. That is the goal of the science to explain and predict. While in qualitative, concern is with the understanding of the social phenomenon from the participants' perspectives. This requires, to some degree, researchers' participation. So for research purposes, if we talk about quantitative, i-highlight nato diya ang measured variables. Okay? This is all about the measured variables. So dapat kay kwan, basis. And the basis of that one is the numbers. For the qualitative, it's all about participants' perspective. Okay, it's all about the perception of the let's say respondents. Okay, and that is also the job of the researcher sa qualitative is to interpret those perception into something believable. Okay, something something kanang not genuine pero accurate siya dapat sa imuhang pangita na answer for your problem. Well, in methods and processes, the quantitative is all about the scientific. It uses the scientific method that is also known as the pre-established design. And also, it is use of emergent design. For qualitative, it uses emergent design utilizing the constant comparison and revision. That's the reason why we have, sa ato ang subject karon, we have the investigations because we are dealing with scientific investigation man good. We'll be using the scientific method to answer certain problem that you have made from your research question. And then for the quant-code, for the inquiries, we'll discuss it later. Okay, we have also here the prototypical studies, okay, the prototype studies. For the quantitative, we have the experimental or correlational designs that are used to reduce error, bias, and the influence of extraneous variables that control of biases to design. Example, magod sa quantitative research magod. For example, surveys na. Okay. So mga surveys magod, they're using the quantitative type of this of survey because it deals with numbers. Okay. So number of respondents, di ba? For example, sa election, no? So na mga videos diya nga nagkano. Sino ang presidente ngayon? And then ginamark na nila 1. Gina-total din natin, ginakuha ang percentage. Out of the 1,000 of respondents, then they will come up with this percentage. And that is what that design is used to validate a specific data. Okay, wala ka nagbuat-buat lang. Okay? You are validating a data through quantitative type of research design, using that design. Well, in qualitative, it is the use of ethnography. which helps readers understand the multiple perspectives of the situation by the person studied. Subjectivity in data analysis and interpretation is acknowledged as well. Okay, so more ka on the respondents. Again, it's all about perceptions. It's all about perspective type na situation. So, medyo dili siya, siguro kung makasupport ka sa sa imong qualitative type of research, then there's a possibility that ang imuhang result ng makuha diya is, uh, let's say, kwan siya, accurate siya, okay? But not, pero dili siya pasabot nga, kwan na siya, di na siya open for questioning, okay? So, open yun diya po na siya. Daghan kayo pwede mahalungkat when it comes to qualitative type of research. Okay, what is the researcher's rule in the quantitative and qualitative type of research design? For the quantitative, detachment from study in order to avoid bias, while for the qualitative, immersion in a situation and the phenomenon being studied. So that is the researcher's role when it comes to doing this research. Okay. The context for quantitative is it is a context-free generalization. For the qualitative, the generalizations are contextually bound. Okay? Ano context-free man generalization ang qualitative? Again, because it deals with numbers. So, to avoid errors and biases, numbers is more evident. While sa qualitative, since perception na naman siya tanan, is, let's say, assumptions. Okay, so it needs better resources and references to make the generalization more kind of in context siya. Okay. For the precision, obtained for quantitative, obtained through the use of measurement and statistics. Okay, I've been saying that one a while ago. For the qualitative, provided by the detailed description of the phenomenon. So there are recent studies for the qualitative lang there are recent studies that can be correlated to your study as well. So pwede ka mag-idea na to and then imo siya i-connect sa imuha, then you can have that answer na yun. For the verification, for quantitative, okay, the results are replicated by the others. And for the qualitative, extension of understanding by others. For the qualitative na good class, kung naata gitawag na rubrics, pwede na ito na siya apply diyan. Okay, rubrics can also be a good help for verifying your result when it comes to quantitative research. And for the qualitative, rubrics is also needed, but you have to make sure that ang rubrics na gibot nimo is strong. Okay, dili siya basta-basta lang. How do we explain quantitative research? Traditionally, in the parsimonious explanations were sought, but this may be changed due to technology. So if you are using, sometimes we are using this technology to do some statistics. So most of the time, it's the technology that explains, because ang calculation sa imong studies quantitative was based from the technology or was nagamit ng technology. For the qualitative, the summary is through the narrative, and you have to make sure that the important parts of those results should be placed to avoid bitaw to make the explanation more simple pero complex. Okay? Make it reliable. Okay? You have to make sure that everyone that will read your research is makain sila, okay. Sakto juday ni. Okay? Legit juday ni. So those are the things na kinahanglan mo bantayan when it comes to explaining your result. For the logical reasoning, dito man na siya mukon sa itong conclusion. No? So we have to deduct as of what do you think is the difference between the deductive and inductive logical reasoning? For deductive, kanila siya question, what's the classic example? For the inductive, anyone have an example? So, sa deductive, medyo specific ta, while for inductive, medyo open ta. Okay, so daghan, for deductive, specific lang ang atong o kanang data. Well, for inductive, we have this multiple type of data na pwede ito makuhaan po as a source sample. Conditional conclusions, okay, the statement is based from the statistical probability, while for the qualitative is tentative summary or interpretation. Okay na. So what are the different type of quantitative studies? So we have here this descriptive, through experimental, quasi-experimental, correlational, and predictive. So if you talk about descriptive, quantitative type of research class, it describes the characteristics of a population, especially in a wide and pertains, it is wide and pertains to a specific group. So that is how the descriptive uh, research sa quantitative yung study is happening. Okay? You are, the word itself descriptive, no? To describe. Okay? You are describing a specific characteristic, either depending on the subjects that you have. Okay? Isa rin respondent nimo. Okay? Kasi mga respondents nimo. So, mag-matter na siya dito sa mga respondents. And of course, the result of what you have, well, let's say, unsay mo gibuhat datong a certain type of population. Okay? Now, the kwan man good, ang pinaka-copying part sa descriptive type na research man good is because daghan man ka, you have multiple kwan. You have multiple types na mga respondents. And it is a very wide kanang kwan, data collection. Diba? So, imagine, no? Sa 20 nimo ka respondents, if 15 of them answers the first question that you have to make sure that their answers are related to each other. Okay? You have to read it one by one. You have to make sure that ang ilahang answer, person by person is na consistency, na ang gipangita. Okay? And how about the true experimental? It's about the manipulation of independent variables and random distribution to derive cause and effect through statistical analysis. Now, through experimental, by the word itself, it's through experimental, no? Okay? It's not about what? It's not about how you, let's say, percept this specific data. Di ka pwede maingon nga, sa data number 1 kay, 93% siguro ni siya. Kay, sa 20 ka respondent na ako, 15 man. Kani siguro si question number 2 kay mga answers na mga 0.6% kay mura na yung answer. So you cannot do that, di ba? You have to make sure that your variables is strong, okay? Because you have to the assurance there is for you to prove that your study is legit, okay? So you have to kind of come up with a very you have to come up with an independent variable, okay, so that you can nakaderive ka og kanang bitag specific answer po through statistical analysis. Okay, di mo siguro ma-process ang sa research kung wala kay statistical analysis. That is quasi-experimental type research. Okay, this it focuses on the cause and effect relationship when it comes to the specific research that you have. Okay, so pila man ka sample ato kinahanglan sa cause and effect, syempre nakakay duha. Okay, nakakay duha ka variables. So kinahanglan nga kanang duha ka variables nimo is maka-derive ka og specific answer nga isa jud is dili siya equal sa isa because di man pwede nga sa duha ka bug nag-compete mo rin makadaog. Ano dyan na di ba? So, for the correlational, okay, but the word itself correlate, it is a non-experimental research that studies the relationship between two variables through statistical analysis. Now, remember, it does not study the effects of the extraneous variables, okay? It means that you can have, pwede ka magamit og many samples as you want. Okay, many samples as you want. Just make sure that among those samples, okay, makakam up ka usa lang ka answer. Okay, let's say 2 or more variables na siya. But the basis of your study on doing the correlational experiment or research is based from statistics. Okay, hindi rin siya based from perception. It should be based from statistics. Because number is more, according to, number is more kind reliable rather than the words. Okay. Next is predictive. Okay, this predictive type of research is it concerns with the forecasting outcomes, consequences, the costs, and the effects. It's all about prediction. Okay, but the prediction happened to be based from again statistic na po. Okay. Okay, sometimes man good no. Once makakita na ta og result na greater lagi ni siya sa 93% ang akong result. So how about the remaining 7%? So ma-forecast na nimo based from the data collections that you have. So tungaon ni mga 7% out of 100%, kung ang 97% na nasa imong study is already na nasa usa ka, let's say na usa ka sample nimo. And the remaining percentage na pwede na naman na siya i-scattered. Again, through statistical analysis. Okay? So, pwede mo yung nasa sample number 2 siguro kay mga point something percent because according to this sa iyang statistics is yan ang iyang abot. Sample number 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Hatod ma-achieve niyo ang 100%. And then, the higher percentage ng sample, that will be the base of your answer na dayon sa imuhang research. So, what are the how do we do the data collections when it comes to research? Okay? How do we do the collection of data? So we have different type of doing it. So first we have the cross-sectional. So it collects data from different resources. So most of the time, it happens sa qualitative ng mga research. Okay? Are you with me? Kung ano ko na pag-story ako maybe makita na ako microphone ninyo nga nag-tap. Magtikitaan mo good dito mo madunggan good.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So most of the cross-sectional happens to be used when it comes to qualitative nga research. Okay? Because it needs a lot of let's say resources and references just to make sure that your research is reliable. Okay? Na pwede siya ma-validate. The validation, ito dyan na siya mag-centralize sa purpose sa imong study. Okay? So, di pwede mayon niya. Kung imong research problem is nag-focus sa students' behavior. And then, ang imong resources na nakuha is about students' hobby. Okay? Or students' let's say, dreams. So, or student experiences. So, how will you use those type of sample or resources kung ang imong focus imong studies about behavior? Okay? So, you have to make sure nga ang imong kwaon pod nga mga resources are based from the behavior. So, asa mata magkuwag mga kwan sa behavior? So, dito ta mag-focus sa iyang, let's say, ang iyang years of, let's say, let's consider na lang siguro the word experience. No? Mag-focus sa experience. Why nag-change ang student's behavior is because of the experience. That could be an answer as well. But aside sa experience, pwede pa ko magkuha nga, okay, na other factor as well. It could be family. Okay? So, na cross-sectional nga, comparison sa data. Okay? So, those are the things that you can do when you do the collection of data. Next is the case control. It's all about the compared and differing the outcome. Okay? Now, when will you compare your answer and when will you differentiate your answer from the other answer? Okay? Now, muna ba siya, for example, ng class di ba? Kung ikaw na pa-check up ka, example, let's talk about pregnancy. Okay? Natin pregnancy test kit. Okay? Di man pwede, di ba, nga isa lang ka pregnancy test kit imong gamiton. Okay? Di man na pwede nga isa lang. Okay? You have to use 3 or more, or 2 or more. Just like sa kanabitang experiment sa science, bitaw class nga, trial and error. Okay? There's a base man gud do nga ang imuhang ka ng kuan, ang first nimo nga test is dili gid siya valid. Okay? Di siya valid. Murag kuan na siya, mura na siya ka ng what you call this one. Kana bitang basing nanay nakadugang nga pa ng chemical batog nag-positive ang imuhang pregnancy test. So, you have to try the other one. Okay? Until, ma-validate mo na siya nga, okay, pag sa katulo na or kaduwa na, nga, parehas ng gyapon ng result, then, it means that, buros ka. Di ba? Same thing gyapon na siya sa experiment. Or same thing gyapon na siya sa research. Okay? If two or more na gani, ang result is, na siya, nanay consistency sa result, then it means that katunga result mo nakuha is or can be validated na. Okay? It can be verified na. Ma-verified na siya. Okay, for walang klase. Dugang kanang kuan katong dugang isa kanang outcome based bitaw nga kanang education experiment. Kuan na siya kanang hands-on experiment. Dugang ilang pangita na dana sa dapit. Dahil sa ayaw sa understanding nga dito ka sa doing, na kay doing.
Ay, ang according sa doing is hindi na ako siya maabot ang dami. Ako muna siya dito sa performance task.
Ano lang, understanding na lang.
Applying or understanding.
Ano lang.
Sa understanding na ako.
Oh. Okay. So where was I? Okay, okay. Now, if you have different outcome class, you have to make sure that one of those outcome is more on the quiet. Kanapita, what you call this one? Kanang mas greater siya from the other results that you have. Okay? So that's how you do the case control. For the cohort, okay, the cohorting, okay, is a study designs where one or more samples are followed prospectively and subsequently from exposure to outcome. So what is the meaning of this one? When you do the cohorting process ng word, kanabitang, okay, kinanglan ba tabla ang result? Okay? So, dili nga na, di ba? So, what will you do is that if this specific sample is, this specific sample is somewhat like, kanabitang, the same on this next sample that you have, then you can have those both sample as your reference for the result. Okay? Because those two samples that you have, na siya same na result. So pwede na mo siya gamiton dito. Okay? As a source sa mo study. Okay? For example, lugar na sa student behavior o sa student attitude is somewhat like the same ng iyahang iyang concept. You can use that behavior and attitude as one. Okay? As long as mo come up ka sa one specific result. Okay? So the outcome of those two samples, ang iyahang ang iyang result na is based gapon dito sa expected outcome. Okay? So that is how you do the cohorting. And then for the randomized controlled trial, it is a randomly designed, for the word is of random, no? Randomly assigns participants into an experimental group or a control group. The study is based from the randomized controlled trial or the outcome variable being studied. So for the word is of randomized controlled trial, so most of the time it happens when it comes to survey. So we are randomly assigning participants to answer specific kind of research. So, syempre, as you do the randomly as you randomly assign those participants, do not expect that you will end up getting the same answer or the same result. Okay, you still have to study those kind of the variable should be at least observed when it comes to doing your research. Okay, unsa mo independent variables di ay unsa day ilahang relation unsa ilahang relation dito sa imong study. So you have to sort it out. Okay? Dili pwede nga magbot na kag survey questionnaire nga wala ka kabalo kung unsay pagitaon. Are you looking for the independent variable or are you looking for the dependent variable? So those are the things that you do when it comes to research that is using the primary data. Okay? Remember, class, data collection is one of the most important part when it comes to research. Either qualitative or quantitative na siya. Okay? You cannot have research without data. Sorry ka, yan ay kaka-powerful sa lugar kay okay, may problema sa gobyerno, may problema sa classroom, may problema sa inyong balay. Tagnaon na nimo. Diba? Iyan na kaka-power. Kikitagna na nimo. Next is, okay. So this is what I'm talking about kanina, no? Okay. So, okay. How about research using secondary data? Okay. Now, we have the literature review, we have the systematic review, meta-analysis, and analysis of existing data collected for another purpose. So what are these things? Okay, how are they related to secondary data and how important is secondary data sa research? Okay. Now, first is the literature review. You have to gather articles on the topic of interest. Okay. Now, this is the problem of you student. Okay? Problema, bisan pag dili research ni siya class, bisan pag sa project or sa assignment or sa activity lang. This is the problem sa inyo, ano? Kailan mo kay paraphrasing? Di ba? Kailan mo kay paraphrase? Kailan mo kay rephrase?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Kailan mo? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, kana sila, it doesn't mean nga magkuha kag resources dito para sa imuhang, for example, sa mo research or articles maka is dili na mo ilhon kung kinsa nagbuhat na, di ba? Baga kay kagnaw. Yan ara bang talent, no? Bisag sa kinsa mo siguro talent mo siguro na siya nga, okay, copy paste lang and then na. Okay? Wala man ay effort nga according to. Wala nga na or based from the study of. Okay? Based from. Okay? Wala may nga na. So, wala may ito na nga, doctor when said that. Yan na, wala. Okay? You have to make sure nga ang credit ito sa na-create sa article is present when you do the literature or when you do the when you gather some articles. Okay? And then you rephrase. Not totally nga imong i-rephrase ang whole article but you have to summarize the findings that you have from the articles na imong nakuha. Okay? Dili pwede manggod nga, mayon ka lang nga, okay, muna siya yung giingon, okay mo na. And then, supayan nimo sa other articles. And then, so on and so forth. Asa man imuhang kwanda na? Asa man ang imuhang own nga statement, okay? You have to make sure na kay own statement as well. Okay? Just to make your kanang literature, karapitang, dili siya copy-paste lang tanan. Okay? Naa siya, let's say, professional pud nga pagkadating ma. Student lagi mo, pero you are professionally doing it. Diba? Wala lang ka nag-plagiarize. Okay? Wala ka naa kay, for example, lugar, no? Like I've said ganina, behavior and attitude are two different words. Okay? But if you focus on the meaning, murag, okay, makatabang mo siguro ni siya ang naa sa attitude para ako ma-compare sa behavior. Pwede na mo gamiton na siya as one of your literature. Look for something na related na. And then, kung naa kay makitaan kayo ng mga keywords class, di ba? In doing the experiment or in doing the research class, natin mga keywords. Okay? Those keywords are your guide. You have to look for those keywords. Okay? Those are what called matag part sa variable bito nimo nga. Okay, mo mga keywords na pangitaon nako dani nga article. Makita gi ko dani nga word or kani nga statement. This could be something na magamit nako for my literature. Okay, pwede na as long as natin gitawag nga correlation. Okay, mo align din siya dapat. Dili siya basta-basta. May alignment. So nagets na ang literature review or review of related literature. Okay? Okay, let's make it quick na siguro for, let's end our discussion sa secondary. The next is systematic review. For systematic review, okay, gather articles using a predefined search strategy. It may include unpublished studies or also develop a priori objective criteria to evaluate the quality of the studies, and then you summarize the quality of the data and the results. What do you mean by systematic review? These are type of articles that are not yet published. Pero, the resources or the reference that you have is legit. For example, ayaw paggamit ng Wikipedia. Mo din na siya. Wiki answer, Wikipedia, ayaw mo dana. Okay, wala na sila. Di na sila mga, those are kanang edited type ng mga articles. Okay? Di na siya legit na source. Okay? Those are, daga kay flowery na class. Di ka mahimuot lang ka sa meaning, pero di ka mahimuot sa content dana. Okay? So, what do you mean by this one? If you, a researcher, can at least, okay, do something about that kanang study, then do not redevelop the study. But you can add some. Okay? Pwede ka mag-add, pero you have to make sure that is naakay-criteria ginag-follow. Okay? Diba? Di ba ka pwede mag-buat o research nga, di ka pwede mag-buat o data collection wala kay rubric or criteria. Tama dyan na, Diba? So you have to prioritize the quality of the study should be at least related to your study. Okay? So for example, sir, sa mga unpublished studies, sir. For example, naatay mga let's say thesis sample or research sample. Diba? Sa atong skulahan man good, in every school, naman dyan na siya mga let's say, dili siya published through online, pero may mga published na mga articles nga, makita niyo diya sa library. There are also articles that you can find dito sa newspapers, okay, or other non-technological nga mga resources. You can look for those for some articles there that can be related sa imong study. Okay? For the meta-analysis, okay, it is a combination of doing the systematic review and then using the primary data, and after doing the systematic review of the let's say gathering information from the articles that are not yet published, plus using one of those primary data, just to make that study reliable and validated. So, by the word itself, meta-analysis. So, you go to you analyze the data, you analyze the article, you analyze the study beyond of what you have understand. Okay? So, di lang di mag-andapan. So, naadyo kay pero summarize the data quantitatively. So, naadyo kay dapat. There's a certain process to do that one. Step 1, step 2, 3, 4. And then, as long as makakita ka o maka-end up ka o data or let's say, studies nga mo relate sa imuhang problem. Okay? And then, analysis of the existing data. So, you can use administrative data for research. For example, we have example na is kato mga nakabuhat na nga study, pwede naman na siya pa dito data. Again, ayaw pagkapihatanan. Okay? And use regularly collected survey data. You can also use that one. For example, there are surveys that is dili siya published through dili siya according sa book, pero naa siya sa internet. And some of the researchers are doing that one. Those are survey questionnaires through online. You can also use that one as your reference. And then use data collected for another study. So, kana lang, okay? Mag-choose lang ka og mga articles, choose kag mga information, choose kag mga studies nga pwede nimo siya magamit as your secondary data that will support your research question, your problem, or your research mismo. Okay? So, unsa may technique na, di ba? Unsa may technique na di ay para mao na siya. Dapat balo kag basa. Okay? Balo magbasa. Balo mo magbasa?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Shout out ko sa mga student bito nga bisag pagbasa bito kay pa jud, kapoy pa jud gyapon. Okay? Dili pwede nga dapat kung ikaw gabot ng research, dapat balo kag basa. Your wala mo gi-oblige kay may mong reader because not all of us are like ako. I'm not a reader except sa comics, no? Except sa mga non-experimental nga mga books kay kanang mga science books okay ra sa ako magbasa-basa na. Okay? Pero you have to be a reader. Dapat basa is the key when it comes to research kay di maka-create og usa ka maka-create og usa ka study unless di ka marunong mabasa. Diba? Unsa may imuhang unsa may imuhang kanang source kung saan mo pag-defend ang specific data kung ikaw mismo wala ka nagbasa dana. So, dili na siya highlight, copy and paste lang. Okay? Okay, let's end our discussion here sa data gathering. Okay? Next meeting, we'll be discussing about the inquiries and, of course, we'll also be dealing with the scientific investigation. So we can end up our first module, okay, for this week. So, since I cannot entertain questions right now because abot daw sa natabo sa akong laptop, but anyways, I hope you have learned something sa atong lesson today. So, thank you so much for attending this class. See you again this Thursday. Okay, goodbye everyone.
Bye, sir. Bye,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Goodbye,
Sir.
sir.
Bye. Okay, bisag wala ko'y kadunggan sa inyong habay.
Hello, sir.
Philip. Kadunggan ka ni mo di ay? Abi naguba akong mic. Wala ko lagi mo nag-leave.